The first body was discovered inside a small roadside hotel in Changsha. The caller said a man had taken his own life inside one of the rooms. Police arrived expecting a routine case. What they found instead stopped everyone cold. The man was completely naked. His body was suspended from a fire pipe near the ceiling. His hands and feet were bound. But the most disturbing detail was not the position of the body. It was the expression on his face. He was smiling, not a trace of pain, not fear, not struggle. A look of satisfaction frozen in place. Even seasoned officers had never seen anything like it before. The room showed no signs of forced entry, no signs of a fight, no witnesses, no cameras. The hotel had no registration records. It was one of many unlicensed guest houses operating quietly to save money. The case stalled immediately. Less than 2 weeks later, it happened again. Another hotel, another man, same condition, same unsettling expression, same lack of struggle. This time, police noticed something else. The victim was wearing an unusually styled piece of underwear. It didn't belong to him. Now it was no longer an isolated incident. Forensic examination revealed something chilling. Biological evidence inside both victims matched the same individual. Whoever was responsible had been physically present in both deaths. Within 40 days, 6 men were found dead. All were young. All were physically strong. All were discovered in separate hotels. Every scene followed the same pattern. And every victim wore the same unnatural smile. The city changed overnight. Men stopped staying alone in cheap hotels. Hotel owners grew nervous. Police pressure mounted. Media attention exploded. This was no longer just a crime spree. It was a serial killer operating in plain sight. Then a small detail finally cracked the silence. In one hotel, the room had been registered under a name that did not match the victim. Police traced the registration and found a man from Shandong. But the name was false. The trail led to one person. A man who appeared gentle, soft-spoken, slight in build. Nothing about him suggested violence. His real name was Zhou Yuping, and the truth behind him was far darker than anyone imagined. Zhou Yuping did not look like a man capable of overpowering 6 healthy adults. He was small-framed, soft-spoken. His movements were gentle. When police brought him in, many officers doubted they had the right person. But the evidence was already closing in around him. Zhou grew up in a family immersed in performance. His parents were stage actors. From a young age he learned how to observe people, how to imitate emotion, how to play a role convincingly. He had an older brother and sister, and on the surface his childhood appeared normal. But inside, something was forming quietly. As a teenager, Zhou realized he did not feel attraction the way others did. He was not drawn to women. What caught his attention were physically strong men. This realization made him a target. He was mocked, isolated, humiliated. Over time, admiration turned into resentment, desire mixed with anger. and anger slowly hardened into something darker. He left school early and entered the nightlife world, working in bars and clubs. There, his voice became his tool. He sang well. His appearance was striking in a fragile way. Men noticed him. Some were curious. Some were drawn in. Joe learned how easily attention could be controlled. By the mid-2000s, he was making good money, enough to live comfortably. Money was not what he lacked. What grew instead was obsession. In 2006, Joe committed his first known crime. He arranged to meet a man through the internet. In a hotel room, he drugged him and assaulted him. He took the man's phone and a small amount of cash. When the victim reported the incident, Joe was arrested. At the time, same-sex assault laws were unclear. He was convicted only for theft and served a short sentence. Prison did not reform him. It refined him. After his early release, Joe discovered online communities centered around extreme control and dangerous games. He became fascinated by the idea of power at the edge of life. He began posting messages looking for tall, muscular men. He used coded language. Those who understood responded. One man contacted him repeatedly, married, a father, curious, lonely. Joe agreed to meet him in a hotel. What happened there would become the blueprint. They began with trust, conversation, comfort. Then Joe introduced what he called a game, a way to feel something extraordinary, a moment of intensity that required absolute surrender. He promised safety. He promised control. When the man lost consciousness, Joe did nothing. He took the man's belongings and left. From that moment on, something inside Joe shifted. Fear was replaced by excitement. Guilt was replaced by thrill. He realized he could decide who lived and who didn't. The next victims followed quickly. Some angered him by asking for money. Some disappointed him. Some simply trusted him too much. Each time, Joe repeated the same ritual, same setting, same method, same cold departure. And each time, he felt more powerful. When police finally arrested him, Joe denied everything. He claimed it was consensual, that he left while they were still alive. He never explained how 6 men died the same way. He never showed regret. What investigators saw was not madness, it was intention. And in court, when the full pattern was revealed, the truth became undeniable. This was not an accident, not a misunderstanding, not a game gone wrong. It was deliberate, and it was far from over. The trial did not reveal a monster in chains. It revealed something far more unsettling. Zhou Yuping sat calmly in the courtroom. His posture was relaxed, his expression steady. When the charges were read aloud, he showed no shock, no fear, no regret. Prosecutors laid out the timeline with precision. 40 days, 6 men, different hotels, same method, same outcome. Forensic experts testified that biological evidence found in all 6 victims came from the same person. Hotel records tied Joe to multiple locations under false names. Online messages showed how he selected his victims carefully. Tall, strong, confident. Men who believed they were in control. The court heard how each encounter followed a pattern. Trust first. Comfort. Then the suggestion of a dangerous game. Joe described it as a way to feel something intense. A moment just before the body gives in. He promised he would stop in time. He never did. When asked why he took money from some victims despite having substantial savings, Joe gave no clear answer. Investigators later concluded it was not about money at all. It was about possession, proof that he had been there, that he had taken something with him. What disturbed the court most was his emotional state. During his confession, Joe spoke without hesitation, without remorse. At times, he appeared excited while describing the moments leading up to death. The idea of control, of deciding when someone crossed the point of no return. That was where his satisfaction came from. Psychological evaluations found no severe mental illness that would remove responsibility. Joe understood exactly what he was doing. He understood the consequences. And he continued anyway. On March 29, 2021, the Changsha Intermediate People's Court delivered its verdict. Zhou Yuping was found guilty of intentional homicide. The sentence was death, along with permanent deprivation of political rights. There was no reaction from him when the judgment was read. No tears, no protest, no final words. Outside the courtroom, families of the victims stood in silence. For them, justice came late, too late to change what had been taken. But it brought an end to the uncertainty, an end to the fear that the killer was still out there. This case left behind more than a legal ruling. It exposed how easily trust can be weaponized, how danger does not always look dangerous, how someone soft-spoken and unassuming can hide extreme violence beneath the surface. And it left one final truth that cannot be ignored. The most terrifying crimes are not always loud. They do not always involve force. Sometimes they begin with consent, with curiosity, with a promise that everything will be fine. And by the time that promise is broken, it is already too late. This was not fiction. This was not exaggeration.